Absolutely. Here's an expanded version of step 1. Rebuild your energy, not your image, written in Sadia Khan's motivational style, around 600 words without adding headings or subheadings. When a woman loses interest, most men make the same mistake. They go into panic mode. They start analyzing what went wrong, what she's thinking, what she's feeling. They replay every conversation, every text, every silence. And slowly, without realizing it, they stop living their own life and start living in reaction to hers. That's the moment they lose themselves. You can't regain someone's interest by losing your own identity. You can't make her feel something for you when you no longer feel whole within yourself. What you need to understand is that attraction begins with energy. Before she ever liked your looks, your voice, or your words, she felt your energy, that quiet confidence. That groundedness, that sense of being in control of your life, that's what drew her in, and that's exactly what fades when you start chasing, apologizing excessively, or trying to prove your worth. If you truly want her interest back, stop trying to fix the image of yourself she sees, and start rebuilding the energy of who you are. The difference is massive. One is about performance, the other is about presence. One is about pretending, the other is about becoming. Rebuilding your energy means detaching your sense of value from her validation. It means waking up in the morning and choosing to do things that strengthen you mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Go back to the version of yourself that was alive before she came into your life. The version that had goals, passions, hobbies, and discipline. The version that didn't seek approval to feel enough. Because flows, because you're, that's the ENER, age, that ES, atiatnize, itiisted her in the. You don't have to post it online. You don't have to tell her you've changed. You just have to live it when you start working out, not because you want her to notice, but because you want to feel powerful again, your posture changes. Your energy shifts when you start investing in your purpose, your career, your mental clarity. You begin to vibrate at a higher level. And women are naturally drawn to that energy. See, she was never attracted to the idea of perfection. She was attracted to growth, to strength, to the kind of man who stands tall even when life shakes him. But when you start begging or over-explaining, you become emotionally small. You start acting from fear of losing her, fear of being alone, fear of not being enough. And nothing kills attraction faster than fear. Rebuilding your energy is about stepping back into your masculine core, calm, grounded, certain. You stop chasing and start leading. You stop trying to be chosen and start choosing yourself. And the moment you do that, you change the dynamic completely. She starts to sense that you're no longer orbiting around her. She starts to notice that your attention is no longer guaranteed. And that subtle shift, that quiet detachment, makes her look at you differently. She begins to wonder what changed. She begins to feel the loss of your presence. That's when her curiosity returns. That's when attraction starts to rebuild naturally, effortlessly. You're not rebuilding for her. That is what builds a legacy. It comes from being aligned. When you stand in that energy, you become magnetic again, not because you're trying to impress her, but because you've reconnected with your own power. So stop asking, how can I make her like me again? And start asking, how can I like myself again? Because when you truly start to value yourself, the world, including her, will respond to that energy. That's how you regain a woman's interest without begging, by becoming the man whose energy doesn't need to chase what naturally belongs to his vibration. When you're trying to regain a woman's interest, silence and space can feel terrifying. You think that if you don't reach out, she'll forget you. You imagine her moving on, talking to someone else, or losing every ounce of feeling she once had for you. So you text again, you call again, you try to explain how much you care, hoping your words will remind her of your worth. But every time you do, you push her further away, because attraction doesn't grow in pressure, it grows in space. When a woman pulls away, it's not always because she stopped caring. Sometimes she just stopped feeling that spark she once felt. Constant attention doesn't reignite that spark, it suffocates it. Think about it. When you had her attention in the beginning, you weren't chasing. You weren't overthinking. You were calm, confident, unpredictable. She didn't know when you'd call, and that mystery kept her curious. But now, every message you send, every attempt to explain yourself, removes that curiosity. It makes you predictable. And predictability kills excitement. The power of space is not about playing games. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about letting things breathe. It's about creating the silence where reflection can happen. When you stop chasing, when you stop reacting, when you stop begging for closure or clarity, she finally has room to feel your absence. And absence is powerful. It forces emotional awareness. It's in the silence that she begins to remember your presence, how it felt to have your attention, your energy, your voice. Men often confuse attention with connection. They think, if I keep talking, I'll rebuild the connection. But true connection doesn't happen through constant communication. It happens through emotional impact. When you step back with dignity, you send a message far louder than words. I respect myself enough not to beg for space in someone's life. That quiet confidence is magnetic. It's the kind of energy that makes a woman think twice. It reminds her of the man who once moved effortlessly through life, the man she admired for his composure. Space works because it breaks emotional dependency. Right now, she expects you to react. She expects you to text. She expects you to reach out. The moment you don't, her mind starts questioning. She begins to feel the imbalance. Why isn't he calling? Did he move on? Does he still care? That curiosity is the first spark of renewed attraction. But if you fill that silence with desperate words, you erase that curiosity immediately. There's a saying, people value what they fear losing. When you constantly make yourself available, you remove the fear of loss. When you withdraw gracefully, you reintroduce value. You remind her that your presence is not guaranteed, it's earned. And here's what's beautiful about this step. Space doesn't only affect her, it transforms you. In that silence, you start hearing your own thoughts more clearly. You start realizing how much emotional energy you were giving away. You reconnect with your peace, your goals, your discipline. You stop living reactively and start living intentionally. You stop being consumed by what she's thinking and start focusing on what you need to become. It's in this distance that your energy recalibrates. You begin to glow differently, calmer, stronger, more centered, and when she senses that shift even from afar, it changes how she perceives you. You're no longer the man who needs her validation. You've become the man who has reclaimed his balance. Remember this, begging kills respect. Over-explaining kills desire, but silence commands attention. Silence makes her wonder, and that wonder is the seed of attraction. So give her space, not as a strategy, but as self-respect. Let her feel what life is like without your energy constantly reaching for her. Let her curiosity do the chasing this time. Because when a man is at peace with distance, he becomes magnetic. And when a woman starts to miss your calm, that's when her interest begins to return quietly, naturally, and powerfully. When you've rebuilt your energy and mastered the power of space, there comes a moment when she might return a message, a call, a subtle sign that she's curious again. This is where most men lose all the progress they made. They rush in too fast, hoping to pick up where things left off. They overcompensate, trying to prove they've changed. But if you truly want to regain her interest, you have to do something far more powerful. You have to reintroduce yourself, not as the man she left, but as the man she never truly met before. When she comes back into your orbit, understand something. She's not looking for words, she's looking for energy. She's watching how you carry yourself now, your tone, your calmness, your detachment. She wants to see whether you're the same person who used to react emotionally, or if you've evolved into someone who doesn't need to. So don't explain your growth, embody it. Let her feel it. A man who has reconnected with his purpose doesn't need to prove his worth through conversation. His presence speaks louder than his words. When you interact with her again, don't bring up the past. Don't reopen old wounds or demand validation. Keep your energy grounded in the present. Show her through your composure that you've healed, that you've matured, that you've risen above the chaos that once existed between you. This quiet strength will intrigue her far more than any emotional confession ever could. The truth is, women are not drawn to men who need them. They're drawn to men who inspire them. When she sees that you've built a life that doesn't revolve around her, but still welcomes her with warmth and peace, she starts to see you differently. It's no longer about missing the old version of you. It's about discovering a new version she can't quite predict or control. That unpredictability, that mystery reignites the spark. Reintroducing yourself with purpose also means setting a new tone. You're not stepping back into the same dynamic where she had all the emotional power. You're coming from a place of alignment. That means you communicate from strength, not from need. You listen more than you speak. You lead the interaction calmly without rushing for outcomes. Whether she stays or walks away doesn't shake your foundation anymore, and that emotional stability is magnetic. Understand this, attraction isn't about manipulation. It's not about making her jealous or pretending to be indifferent. It's about showing her through the way you live that your peace cannot be disturbed, that your self-worth isn't negotiable. When she senses that you've reached that level of emotional independence, she feels something she didn't before, respect. And respect is the gateway to attraction. She'll notice the difference, the way you smile, not forced, not bitter, but genuine. The way you listen without defensiveness, without trying to win. The way you carry yourself with quiet confidence, with grounded calmness. That's how she feels your transformation without you needing to announce it. The man you've become now isn't chasing validation. He's too busy living in alignment with his values, goals, and purpose. And paradoxically, that's exactly what reignites her interest. Because when you no longer need her to complete you, she begins to feel that magnetic pull again. She starts to see your worth in a new light, not because you told her, but because your energy silently demands recognition. So, when she returns, don't focus on what to say. Focus on what to be asterisk. Be present, be calm, be purposeful. Show her that you're a man who's learned from the past but isn't trapped by it, a man who knows how to love deeply but never at the cost of his dignity. A man who doesn't chase, he attracts. Because when you've evolved into that version of yourself, you don't need to convince her of anything. She'll feel it in every word you speak, every silence you hold, every action you take. That's how you reintroduce yourself, not with noise, but with power. Not through explanations, but through evolution. And when she sees that, when she senses that unshakable calm in you, she'll know this time she's standing in front of a man she can't afford to lose again. The fourth and final step isn't about her at all. It's about what you do after you've rebuilt your energy, mastered the power of space, and reintroduced yourself with purpose. Because once you reach this point, the real test begins, the test of consistency, discipline, and self-respect. See, anyone can change for a few weeks. Anyone can act confident for a little while. But it's only when life tests you again, when she pulls away, when communication fades, when you're tempted to chase, that your real growth is revealed. The fourth step is about holding your frame. It's about maintaining your peace even when everything around you tries to shake it. You see, masculine energy is not built in moments of comfort. It's forged in moments of uncertainty. It's easy to feel calm when things are going your way. But true strength shows when you choose peace over panic. When you no longer react emotionally to what she does or doesn't do. When you no longer let her actions dictate your worth or your day. That's when you've mastered yourself. The moment she senses that emotional consistency, something shifts. Because most men lose composure at the first sign of rejection or indifference. They start spiraling back into insecurity, begging for reassurance, over-explaining themselves, or trying to reignite what's already fading. But a man who has done the inner work stands firm. He doesn't cling to what's slipping away. He lets go with grace. He understands that forcing connection only creates resistance. He's not attached to outcomes. He's attached to his peace. And that's where real power lies. When you stop fighting to be understood, you start to become respected. When you stop chasing, you start to attract naturally. When you stop trying to control the situation, you begin to flow with it. A man who embodies that kind of calm presence becomes unforgettable because peace is rare. In a world full of people begging to be noticed, the one who can remain still stands out effortlessly. The fourth step is also about remembering your standards. Don't forget what you learned just because she comes back around. Don't slip back into old habits the moment she gives you attention. Remember the lessons the distance taught you. Remember how it felt to have your power back. Remember the version of yourself that stopped settling for less. If she returns, she should meet that man, not the man who once begged for her time, but the one who now values his energy too much to waste it. And even if she doesn't return, you still win, because this journey was never truly about her. It was about you finding yourself again. It was about healing the parts of you that needed external validation. It was about learning to be at peace whether she chooses you or not. That's what emotional freedom feels like, when your happiness no longer depends on anyone else's approval. When you reach that level of growth, you begin to notice how your whole world changes. Opportunities start appearing. People treat you differently, you move differently, you speak differently. You're no longer trying to impress anyone, you're just being authentic, and authenticity is magnetic. That's the kind of energy that doesn't chase love, it attracts it naturally. So the fourth step is about becoming the man who doesn't need to prove anything anymore. The man who knows his worth so deeply that he can walk away from anything that disturbs his peace. The man who understands that love isn't about possession, it's about alignment. If it fits, it flows. If it doesn't, he lets go without resentment, without fear, without ego, because in the end, regaining a woman's interest without begging isn't about tactics or words. It's about transformation. It's about rising so high in your purpose and peace that you no longer chase love, love finds you. When you've reached that point, you don't just regain her attention, you command respect, you radiate strength, and you live from a place of quiet power. That's the man she can't ignore, and that's the man you were meant to become all along. The fifth step is the one most men never reach because it requires something rare, emotional mastery. This isn't about winning her back or proving your worth anymore. It's about understanding the deeper lesson behind everything that happened. It's about realizing that losing her wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Every rejection, every silence, every unanswered message was designed to push you toward becoming the version of yourself that no longer depends on love to feel whole. The fifth step is acceptance, pure, powerful acceptance, and the peace that comes with it. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean you stop caring or that the connection meant nothing. It means you stop resisting reality. You stop fighting to change what's already been decided. You stop carrying the emotional weight of what could have been, and you start focusing on what is. Because pain only stays when you feed it with resistance. The moment you stop trying to rewrite the past, it loses power over you. You start to see things clearly, the lessons, the patterns, the growth. You begin to understand that everything unfolded exactly as it needed to for you to evolve. When you reach acceptance, you start viewing her not as someone you lost, but as someone who helped you grow. You stop blaming, stop wishing, stop waiting. You no longer ask, "Why did this happen to me?" And instead you ask, "What did this teach me?" That shift in perspective is where your real healing begins. You understand that love is not ownership, it's experience. It's meant to shape you, not define you. Most men never make it here because they're addicted to closure. They keep chasing explanations that will never bring peace, but the truth is, you don't need her to say she regrets it. You don't need an apology. You don't even need a second chance. You just need to forgive not for her, but for yourself. Forgiveness doesn't mean she was right or that what happened was fair. It means you're choosing not to carry that energy anymore. You're freeing yourself from the story that kept you small. Acceptance gives you emotional freedom. It makes you unstoppable because when you no longer fear loss, nothing can control you. You can love deeply without attachment. You can give your best without expecting anything in return. You can walk away from anyone or anything that disturbs your peace, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. That's the kind of power that makes people feel your presence long after you're gone. And here's the beauty of it: once you truly accept, once you genuinely let go, life often brings things back to you in ways you never expected. Sometimes she returns not because you chased her, but because your peace draws her curiosity again. Other times, someone better aligned with your growth enters your life, but by that point, you don't chase either outcome. You're content-centered, whole. You understand that your worth never depended on who stayed. It was always about who you became. That's the final step, not trying to win anyone back, but winning yourself back completely. To live with quiet confidence, with peace in your heart and purpose in your path. To move forward without bitterness, without ego, without need. To love again one day, not from emptiness, but from overflow. Because the man who has accepted everything fears nothing. The fifth step is freedom, the kind that doesn't need validation, doesn't need closure, and doesn't need control. It's the peace that comes when you finally understand that sometimes losing someone was the exact thing that allowed you to find yourself. And once you've found yourself, truly found yourself, you realize that was the point all along. The sixth step is about alignment, becoming so true to who you are that everything and everyone that's meant for you naturally gravitates back. This is where the journey comes full circle. You've rebuilt your energy, you've embraced silence, you've reintroduced yourself, you've held your frame, and you've accepted what is. Now it's time to align your actions, your thoughts, and your purpose so deeply that you no longer chase anything, you attract everything. Alignment is when your heart, your mind, and your habits all move in the same direction. There's no conflict inside you anymore. You're not battling between what you want and what you deserve. You've learned to trust that what's meant for you will meet you halfway when you're walking in your truth. The problem with most men after heartbreak is that they rebuild only on the surface. They look stronger, they act tougher, but inside they're still carrying old pain. They still want validation. They still want someone to come and tell them they are enough, but alignment goes deeper. It's when you finally decide to stop living from old wounds and start living from wisdom. You don't try to prove anything. You don't perform strength, you embody it. You move through life with peace because you're no longer at war with yourself. When you reach alignment, you stop needing people to understand your journey. You stop over-explaining why you're distant, why you've changed, or why you've outgrown certain dynamics. You realize that peace doesn't need to justify itself. You start doing things because they feel right for your soul, not because they make sense to anyone else. That's when life starts aligning with you, opportunities flow in, people who match your energy appear, and love becomes effortless again. Because love that aligns doesn't drain you, it nurtures you. It doesn't confuse you, it grounds you. Alignment also means living with integrity, saying what you mean, doing what you say, and keeping promises to yourself. It's easy to impress others, it's hard to stay loyal to your own standards, but the more you align your actions with your values, the more magnetic you become. People start trusting your energy because you live truthfully. You no longer chase attention, you command respect. You no longer try to fit in, you create your own lane. And here's the beautiful irony: when you stop chasing love and start living in alignment, the right kind of love finds you. The kind that doesn't test your worth, but reflects it, because the universe mirrors who you are, not what you want. When you vibrate at peace, you attract peace. When you live in purpose, you attract people who live with purpose. When you embody love, you attract love that doesn't need fixing. Alignment is not about perfection, it's about authenticity. It's about waking up every day and asking, does my life reflect the man I'm becoming? It's choosing what feeds your growth instead of what feeds your ego. It's saying no to anything that feels forced, even if it looks tempting, because once you've done the inner work, chaos no longer feels exciting, peace does. Stability becomes your standard, and that's when you finally realize that regaining a woman's interest was never the real goal. The real goal was regaining yourself, your focus, your power, your direction. Once you're aligned with that, everything else becomes secondary. Whether she comes back or not doesn't define your story. You define it. Your life begins to flow again because you've become aligned with your truth, not your trauma. This is the stage where you stop surviving and start thriving. You're not running from pain anymore. You're walking in purpose. You're not reacting to the past, you're responding to life with awareness, and that calm, that balance, that alignment, it's what makes you unstoppable. Because when a man becomes aligned, he doesn't chase love, money, or validation. He attracts all three simply by being who he was always meant to be.